I see a bit of. I'm sorry.
No, go for it. I like to be challenged.
Well, there's some of you are familiar, of course, with Jonathan Pajot, and in the Orthodox Church you have this idea of the narthex, which is in front of the church, which is the place where the church and the world meet, and he also says that's like the place where the monsters are. I don't like the word of like monsters. I think it's a bit negative, but what he means is if you don't really fit in yet, then that's the place where you can be, and you can be in an in-between place, and that's part of the church. Every church has one and needs one, otherwise it's not a church. And this used to be there in Catholic church buildings. I'm not sure if it still is, but I suppose in some places it is. And so in a way, I think estuary is a part of the church, and it's just simply a 21st century instantiation of a narthex.
We're going to devote our energies to sports and gardening, all the cultural pursuits as far as they're concerned. In fact, we're going to put the goons to sleep. Meanwhile, we dig.
Greetings and welcome to the Anadromous. This is Byrne Power coming to you on a cooler day here in Tbilisi, Georgia. Where is that, Byrne? Look it up on the map. And what's nice is the summer has finally broken. We're not into anything that when I used to live in Alaska I would call at all cool weather. We're still in the 80s, the upper 20s. Today's mid-20s and overcast, but I love it. I got too much sun this summer, and I'm happy to be free of it. So what I thought I would do here is to give you a bit of a report from my trip to Germany and my time at the Bridges of Meaning Festival in the small town of Landau in Germany. And this was kind of interesting because I never actually took a trip specifically to Germany before. Normally, I have to confess, I'm just trying to get through Germany to get to somewhere else. And I might stop and visit friends, but I usually prefer to spend as little time in Germany as possible. And I still kind of feel that way. It's just, I'll explain a little of my ambivalence about visiting Germany in a moment. But this time I had a chance to see more aspects in one time than I ever have before. So I landed in Stuttgart, Germany, which was, I didn't see. I was picked up by a wonderful guy named Hannes Drack, who then took me to Mannheim, which I really didn't see much of, but it's kind of an industrial town, leveled after the war, as so many of these places were during World War II. And so often rebuilt in what I would consider the least interesting modernist styles available. And I think trying to distance themselves from the past of Germany, the Germanness of Germany, as they could. So Mannheim, I mean, what I saw of it was pretty sterile. Although, I enjoyed the little house I stayed in the country. It was a bit hot, but my hosts were wonderful. And the next day, I was taken with a fellow named Jan to Heidelberg, which hands down right now, Heidelberg is my favorite place in Germany. It's an old town, escaped the leveling of the Allied bombers. And in fact, he told me that they actually dropped leaflets saying, we're not going to bomb Heidelberg because it's just way too important of a city. It has one of the oldest universities in Europe, still is an amazing university town. But the architecture there is wonderful, and if I do go back to Germany someday, I would like to spend more time in Heidelberg. I only spent the good part of a day there, but not even the evening. I highly recommend it. Then I went to Landau, and Landau, it's a German town. What can I say? It was, pleasant enough place. Got a nice meal there. But the main reason any of us were there was not for the town, but for the Bridges of Meaning Festival. And the Bridges of Meaning Festival is Bridges of Meaning is something that Paul VanderKlay came up with. I don't know if he actually invented it, but it's part of his little corner of the internet, which extends, I believe, into my corner of the internet. But my feeling is, if it's a corner, where are the walls? So, but also dealt with his estuary idea, and John Van Donk accompanied Paul to discuss these things. Now, Paul, John, also Job was there from the Netherlands, and I all discussed in much more detail on his channel a report from the Netherlands. But I would wait. Don't go there right now and watch it. I am going to put together a special edition that I'm working on right now, and in that special edition, I'm adding photos from the that I took while I was there, interspersing it. I've also got another angle of photography to kick in now and then, as well as other interesting details like a very funny last-minute thing that I captured on video after Paul had turned his off. So if you want to get a good version of the report from what happened in Landau, wait for that. It'll be coming out in a week or two, and it'll be worth the extra. And if you've already seen Paul's channel and watched it, this will be different. So I just, I'm telling you that. Stick around. Wait for the my version of the report from the Bridges of Meaning Festival with those fellows. But what impressed me most was the quality of discussions that I had. And I met very interesting people. I would say about a third of the attendees were Dutch. I'm just roughly going here. There's no exact estimate. Maybe a third were German. And then the other third were from different places. Like there was Teddy from Israel. And I met very interesting people. Richard from Ireland, Timon from Berlin, Jeremy from France, Sarah from the Netherlands, Tomasz from Poland, Cassidy, whom we've already had a couple of interviews with actually on this channel. And of course I had a chance to finally meet Paul VanderKlay and some of the stalwarts from his channel, like the irascible John Van Donk and the ever sly and humorous Job. And I'm going to try to interview Job at some point in the future. Job, I don't know if you're watching this at all, but I'd like to talk with Job more about some of his ideas. He strikes me as an interesting fellow. So I was really impressed by the quality of the people who came there. This wasn't the kind of conference where people were being swept along. I mean, how many people were there? I mean, if you really included everyone, could we even get to 40? Maybe, I don't know. But my feeling is that it wasn't people all being swept along. Like if you go to a Jordan Peterson event, a lot of people are coming because it's Jordan Peterson. Whereas this event, I think people were coming to talk and to throw around ideas. And that was really good. I haven't experienced anything with that much open conversation since my first visit to L'Abri back in the 1970s. So it was great. And again, check out the report when it comes out, the four of us talking. From there, I left on a train to go to Lüneburg, up in the north of Germany, near the sea, but not quite at the sea, and visited old friend Card Hyatt, And we had, again, I look at this as the conversation trip. Everywhere I was going, what I was mostly doing was having conversations with people. I was not in Germany really to see anything. I mean, even when I was in Heidelberg, the main point for me was to walk around with Jan, and then there was Gabriel and Aaron, whom I met, and have conversations with them, talking with Hannes and his wife, talking with Karsten, talking with his sister, Malay, and then Timon, who were in Berlin. It was about conversation, and that's a good reason to travel, to really have good conversations. Because it doesn't, all this stuff we do online really doesn't count. It's all templates. It's all, it's dry rehearsal. It's the kind of thing that, it's priming the pump. But the real conversation is what you do in person. And that is what I really got out of the festival, but that's also what I got out of this trip. One interesting thing was that as I was traveling, the day I was traveling on the German trains, Germans are known for efficiency, but the German train system that day was absolutely insane. What I realized more was that Germans are into rules more than they are efficiency. I think the Swiss are into efficiency, but the Germans, for instance, everyone still had to wear a mask. Now, we haven't had to wear a mask here in Georgia in any serious way for at least 3 months. And even before then, it was really getting spotty. In March, nobody was wearing a mask on the street when I got back from Prague. You're supposed to wear one in the stores, but that faded off really quickly. Eventually, the government said, okay, only in hospitals and pharmacies. And then I haven't been into any sort of hospital or medical clinic, but basically, in the pharmacies, almost no one would wear them anymore. And that's how it goes in here. In Germany, everybody wear them where they're told to wear them. And interestingly enough, I think I met maybe 2 people who questioned the whole thing, and everybody else was, I look at that now as a farce. It's like, okay, so you've got totally clogged platforms. Some kind of car alarm is going off here? Who's got a car alarm in Georgia? It's a farce, because you've got totally clogged, shoulder-to-shoulder train platforms on all my trips on that one day. And then you get in, and there's a lot more room in the train. But now you have to wear a mask. And also, I would see people, for instance, on my trip back, I remember telling someone in Berlin that, as soon as I get back on Turkish Airlines, nobody's going to be wearing a mask. Nobody has to wear a mask anymore. And they said, but you're taking off from Berlin. And I said, what you're missing is as soon as you get on the plane to your next destination, you're in your next destination officially, And so, I saw about 20 people traveling together, Germans, on the Turkish Airlines plane in Berlin, all wearing masks. And I'm saying, or occasionally, even here, I'll see someone wearing a mask by themselves walking around. And I'm saying to myself, okay, there's one of 2 scenarios here. Either A, you have the virus, or a cold or something, and you're protecting us, which is nice. Or B, you think that's going to protect you. And it won't. Because everybody knows the masks don't really protect you. It's more about preventing your breath from getting on other people. You can't prevent... okay, I'm not going into all that. You get the idea. But the Germans were into rules. It's like waiting at the crosswalk. I mean, I made all sorts of faux pas because I had just given up, living in Georgia here. You just walk across the street. There's a policeman right in front of you. The light is red against you. You walk across in front of the policeman. They don't care. It's a bit loose, but in Germany it's the opposite way around. No one's on the street. People will wait at night, and people will wait for the light to change before they cross the street. Kind of crazy stuff. But I continued on. Karsten took me to Hamburg, which I'd never been to before. And the interesting thing about Hamburg, it's where the Beatles it wasn't the first place they played, but it's where they really developed their sound, playing in these really sleazy dives in Hamburg. And when I got there, the place is still just as sleazy today. And one thing I realized both in Hamburg and in Berlin, and what I'd also seen on another trip in Frankfurt, the Germans do grime very well. You know, everybody has their specialty. But I realized I hadn't seen real cultural grime for the last 3.5 years. I'm living in Tbilisi, Georgia. It's a nice place to live. Poverty, yes. Decay, yes. Dark corners, yes. But no sense of danger, no sense of crazy people, alcoholics, kind of like mentally challenged homeless people on the street. None of that here. I mean, and so to go there, it's like suddenly, oh yeah, I remember this. I used to live in New York City. And it's interesting because our view of the Germans is that they're very neat, they're very organized, and all of this. And there is a lot to that. I mean, don't step in the wrong lane. This is one thing that kills me in Berlin. If you step in the bike lane by accident, then the bike lane happens to be often on the sidewalk, so it's very easy to do. I mean, I started to develop some sort of weird tick about the bike lanes and hearing they hear the little bike bell and go ding ding, and it's just like, to me that was like a nightmarish sound to hear because it meant someone was zipping by, and if you were in the wrong place, they would yell at you on the way by. And I thought, okay, this is like, all right, you want a perfect world? Great, we've got bike lanes now. But I think this is one of the reasons why Germany doesn't appeal to me, is because I really like German people. One-on-one, they're great. I mean, you could probably say this about a lot of people. In the aggregate, though, the whole rules-based society where you don't question the rules seriously. Here in Georgia, no one takes the rules seriously. It's a bit on the other extreme, but I kind of like that. I guess I'm just much more of an anarchic person. Maybe it's partly being Polish that does that to you. But no, I much more prefer the laid-back approach here. I often would tell people, they would say, oh, is this a problem for you? I said, no, I've been living in Berlin I've been living in Georgia for the last 3 years. I'm not put out by people being late at all. You know, it's like the calming fluid of Georgian time delay is in me. I don't really worry about whether things go right or wrong. A lot of them don't go right. So you just live with it. And Georgians, of course, are much better at just accepting the kinds of, a lot of situations Georgians would put up with. I'm still enough of American to go, hey, wait a minute, this isn't right. And Georgians would kind of suffer in silence and not complain about the water going off or, the electricity going down or the garbage getting weird or something like that, whereas I would. Now in Germany, though, those things, you really have to follow the rules. Although, interestingly enough, according to Hannes, Mannheim wasn't really good at recycling, but he said they were kind of a unique case as a city. But, so it's efficiency versus rules. Germans do rules. But I just, for instance, being in Berlin is a great place to get stuff. I went to the music stores there looking for CDs and such, and I found these great collections put out by Bear Family, or as the Germans say, BR Family. And they're known for their great collections of old rock and roll, rockabilly, classic rhythm and blues and all of this. They've been doing this for years. But they have these two collections I was really looking for. One was Neue Deutsche Welle, and that's new German new wave music from the 80s. And the other one was Krautrock, which is the 70s German rock explosion. And I found these collections with, many CDs, lots of music, and I was just happy. Finding stuff like that in Berlin, finding material possessions, I wish we had the kind of plumbing fixtures here in Georgia that they have in Berlin. In a way, this whole trip was exploring German plumbing fixtures. But, events, art, culture, it's all there. But it certainly has its own vibe. But it's not a vibe I'm not interested in, I guess. And I prefer whatever's going on in Tbilisi, which I'm not going to get into a big discussion of right now. I have talked about it in other places. But it's like there are certain big cities which have slid down on my list of places I really enjoy. One of them is London. I go to London and I go to Berlin for one reason only, to visit friends, people I know. I don't go there for the culture, don't go there for the city. Although, I will explore the city while I'm there, and I certainly did, and did a lot of walking, a lot of exploration. Went to the Wall Park, Die Mauergarten, or whatever it was called, with this guy named Timo, and had great conversations with him. Again, individually, I love talking to Germans, but it's like this aggregate of a society that leaves me a little, well, I hate to use the cliched word cold, but it does. And I would say this, I really prefer southern Germany to northern Germany. I just felt it felt a little bit better to me. But I also spent a lot of time in industrial Germany, and that's a whole different kettle of fish, which I don't feel qualified to discuss. Anyway, what I decided to do, since I had so many interesting dialogues while I was in Landau, is to do some more interviews on my channel than I have been doing. For one thing, it's a great way to get things done without spending too much time editing, and it'll give me time for my next series, which I'll discuss in a moment. And one thing is for certain, Benjamin Boyce, if you know his work on his channel, he's agreed to come on my channel and do an interview, and so we're arranging that right now. Also, I really want to talk with Teddy from Israel. He had some interesting thoughts, and some of these other people I met, I might be contacting them, and other people as well. I have a list of about 10, 12 people that I'd like to contact and talk with. Some, my friend Karsten, actually, I think would be a great person to talk to. So, there was some sort of thought about Byrne, should you do the travel and reality series or the cute and the creepy? And from my estimation, the cute and the creepy won out. And I think it's also more needed. It'll probably be only a 3 or 4 part series, but quite elaborate. Each part is going to be quite meaty, with a lot of material in it. But this one will probably get me into trouble, because I think a lot of people make assumptions about cute things, which I just don't make. For me, cute is a real problem culturally. It's like spiritual diabetes. It's aesthetic diabetes. It's the kind of thing that I think if you have too many of these big-eyed cute things in your life, it does something to you. What? Well, you're going to have to watch the series to find out, aren't you? You can get mad at me. I don't care. I realize on this one, a lot of people who would normally kind of agree with me on certain things are going to, you're going to feel your back, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get to some of the deeper root issues of what is wrong with our times. The cute is one of them, and also our labeling of things as the creepy is another. And I specifically use the word labeling because, for instance, I don't think clowns, old puppets, old dolls, old Halloween costumes are creepy in the modern sense of the word. I think nobody who invented those things thought, ooh, I'm making something creepy. Creepy is a word that's in the last 20, 30 years has gathered all these weird associations with it beyond the things that creep and crawl on the wall, beyond the blood and guts on the floor kind of stuff. Interestingly enough now, people will describe, say, Night of the Living Dead as just a horror film and not creepy, but they'll describe like an old Halloween costume from the 1930s, like the one featured in To Kill a Mockingbird, if you've ever seen that movie, as creepy. And I'm just sitting there, what happened? Well, that's what we want to explore in that series. Finally, also I was inspired by this trip, and especially by many of the dialogues that were very rich, open dialogues that I was having with people at the Landau Bridges of Meaning Festival. And by the way, thanks again to Matthias and Cassidy for putting this together. They really did a great job. But I thought it would be great, and I threw this little trial balloon out to a few people, and they were like, yeah. And I thought, oh, okay, maybe some people might do this. It would have to be pretty limited as far as how many people could come. But I thought about the possibility of doing something, not this fall, but next fall, in Tbilisi and in Georgia. And some sort of a week-long event in the early, mid-fall next year, probably late September, early October, maybe with half a week, with me finding cheap accommodations for people, because that can be done in a couple of select places. I can get Airbnb stuff here for, I don't know, $50 a day to house like 5, 6 or more people. I don't have to put people up in expensive hotels or anything like that. And spend half a week in the city exploring cultural things. So exploring puppetry, dance, music, and maybe art. And then the second half of the week, go into the mountains together as a group and stay in a small village, maybe in a couple of different guest homes, and just spend time talking, but more importantly, dividing up and just saying, okay, why don't you folks go down there? Why don't you walk down there? Why don't you walk up the side of that mountain? Why don't you go over there? And, go in groups where people can talk to each other, and then come back and really talk about ideas, talk about where we are, talk about, see what kind of ideas people can come up with, and also knit people together in relationships. And I think this is a really interesting idea, and I'm going to research it a little bit more, and before the end of the year, I'm going to give some specifics about what it might entail. So if that interests you, stick around, because I think that's going to be worth doing. I think that's going to be, great. So anyway, just a few thoughts on my recent trip to Germany and the Bridges of Meaning Festival. Remember, wait for my version of the report on the festival with Paul VanderKlay, John Van Donk, Job, and myself, which will be the special edited version if you haven't seen it already. And thanks for hanging around. And let's see, I've got some sort of thing coming out at the same time as this, which is just a summary of the How We Got Here series, which if you've watched the whole series, it's already there. But The Cute and the Creepy, it will be coming relatively soon. I'll probably put out a couple of interviews before then. But thanks for dropping in. Remember, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you want to know when things are coming. And you can contribute to the channel. I certainly can use it. PayPal link below. Thanks for just being here. And as we say in Georgia, drobi, which literally means just temporarily. We'll be gone temporarily. And we will meet again.
A people without history is not redeemed from time. For history is a pattern of timeless moments.
But it's not the new inventions which are the difficulty. The trouble is caused by unthinking people who carelessly throw away ageless ideals as if they were old and outworn machinery. They would have religion thrown aside, morality in personal and public life made meaningless, honesty counted as foolishness, and self-interest set up in place of self-restraint. At this critical moment in our history, we will certainly lose the trust and respect of the world if we just abandon those fundamental principles which guided the men and women who built the greatness of this country and Commonwealth. Today, we need a special kind of courage. Not the kind needed in battle, but a kind which makes us stand up for everything that we know is right, everything that is true and honest. We need the kind of courage that can withstand the subtle corruption of the cynics,